Good afternoon, Meridian, and welcome to the fourth and final virtual candidate forum for the general election of 2020. My name is Sean Evans, and I'm the president and CEO of the Meridian Chamber of Commerce. The Meridian Chamber currently represents over 600 member businesses, and combined, these businesses represent over 15,000 employees in our area. On behalf of the Board of Directors and our Government Affairs Committee, we appreciate the candidates that are running for public office and that have agreed to join us during these forums so that our business members can learn a little bit more about the candidate and their positions on topics and issues that are important to the Meridian business community. This has been a challenging year for everyone, but some businesses have taken it harder than others, and the usual struggle to be successful in business has added many additional burdens this year. That is why it's so important that Meridian be ready to move forward on the challenges that were in place even before COVID. From transportation infrastructure, the tremendous economic and population growth being experienced in recent years, to our tax structures and how we're going to pay for the needs of the future without burdening certain segments of the population. In these forums, we'll be asking the candidates to focus their comments and answers to our audience, the Meridian business community. Virtual meetings have become a staple of our lives over the last 6 months, and the campaigning during this time is even more challenging. These forums are meant to inform the business community on your positions. This event, like others, are being live streamed on Facebook and YouTube and will be available on all of our social media platforms for later viewing. I'm joined today by Matt Davidson, publisher of the Idaho Press, who will help me moderate these forums.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Good afternoon, Matt. The Idaho Press and the Meridian Press have been our partners in these virtual forums last week and this week. Without further delay, I'd like to turn it over to Matt to introduce each of our candidates that's joined us today and let them begin with their brief opening statements.
Thank you, Sean. So we don't have every candidate that's running for office for District 20 and 21 available today. And I think Sean's going to go through and make sure he lists those names, but we do have a handful. So let's start with Legislative District 20. So appearing today is Pat Souliere, who will give us his opening statements in just 1 second. We also have on the call with us today Donald Williamson, who is running under District 21 as a Democrat against challenger Stephen Harris. And we also have Representative Holzclaw, who's the incumbent in District 20, running against Samantha Hagar, who's unable to join us. So we're going to start with opening statements from Pat Souliere. So Pat, 2 to 3 minutes. Tell us about yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Pat Souliere. I'm running for the State House here in District 20. That's a little chunk of West Boise, but mostly Meridian, north of I-84. First off, I want to thank everyone for their time today. All you tuning in online, our wonderful moderators here, as well as our host, the Meridian Chamber of Commerce. It's a real honor to be here speaking about the future of Idaho. I'm going to skip the bio about myself because I've been campaigning for about 18 months now. And during those 18 months, if you live here in District 20, I likely called you on the phone, knocked your door, texted you, might have sent you one of my postcards, you might have seen Facebook ads, whatever. At this point, you know who I am, and you're probably wondering, what do I want to do if elected in Idaho? So I'll focus what we're talking about today on that. When I started my campaign 18 months ago, I talked to thousands of people all across the political spectrum in the district. And I went to them with one simple question. What do you want me to work on if elected? I talked to business owners, homeowners, everyone. And what I found was actually really surprising. It was incredibly consistent and clear what the people of District 20 want. Everyone here knows we're growing at an astronomical rate. Everyone here knows this because Meridian's a great place to live. It's why we all live here. And we know it's not going to stop anytime soon, and you cannot stop growth. There's no mechanism to do so. So what everybody agrees on is we have to start managing this growth at a state level before it eats us alive. We've seen the effects here in District 20, possibly more than any other district. And I think there's 4 key areas after talking to the community I would like to focus on. 1 is funding education correctly at the state level. 2 is reducing traffic. 3 is making sure every Idahoan has access to affordable health care with low premiums and low deductibles. And number 4 is housing costs, between affordable housing as well as real property tax relief. We need to start getting these things done, not just talking about them, actually doing them. I'm a little disappointed. I had hoped to come here today and talk about these issues and have a good debate with my opponent, incumbent Representative Joe Palmer. Unfortunately, he's not here today. This is the one forum we have for this district. 1 hour was all I was asked of him, and he couldn't even spare that. Why? Because Representative Joe Palmer expects your vote. Well, I'm here today to say I will never expect your vote. I will always aim to earn your vote, and that's what I'm doing right here, right now, taking questions and hearing what matters most to my community. So I look forward to the questions. Thank you again for your time, everyone, and I look forward to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. We appreciate that so much. Since we don't have your challenger here, as you mentioned, let's stay in District 20. And Representative Holzclaw, could you please give us your opening statement, 2 to 3 minutes? You're still muted.
We don't want to be muted. I'm James Holzclaw. I've been representative here for a couple terms. I think the last couple terms we did some outstanding things with traffic, with funding, education, and we're going to continue to do that. Meridian has grown so much in the last decade. We need to manage that growth in a way that's smart and that doesn't put the burden on the homeowner. So what I want to do is to make sure that we keep our taxes low, especially on our resident properties. I feel like the last couple of years, our property taxes have gotten out of control, and we need to put a stop to that. I think funding the roads is a very important thing. I mean, look, we got to get our goods to market, and we can't do that if we're sitting in traffic on Eagle Road. I'm a business owner here in Meridian. I am a veteran of the Air Force. So I was in about 10 years. My son's now in the military, which I'm very, very proud of him. He is carrying on that service, and which I'm really honored to be his dad. I think that it's important for us to have an open dialogue and an open conversation relating to all the issues that's important to this district and the state of Idaho. So I look forward to your questions and the conversation. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you guys having me here today.
You're muted now, Matt. It's going to be a contest. Can we keep from being unmuted? Yeah.
My apologies. So we're going to move on to our only candidate who was able to join us today for District 21, who's the Democrat running against Stephen Harris. Donald Williamson, 2 to 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Donald Williamson. As you said, I'm a Democrat running here for state representative in District 21, Seat A, against incumbent Stephen Harris. My wife and I, my wife's a fifth generation Idahoan, and she moved our family here back in 2012 to be closer to her family. Both of us worked for St. Luke's, her in healthcare administration. I worked in the emergency room at St. Luke's Meridian for about 4 years until we opened up our own small business, and it took off. And the last few years, I've been a stay-at-home dad and helping my wife with the business on the side. Decided a couple of years ago to run for office when the legislature was trying to pass House Bill 1159 to restrict the voter initiative process. And when I was out door knocking for Reclaim Idaho at the time, and that issue happened to come up with not only Democrats, but Republicans, Libertarians, everybody across the political spectrum. Everybody said that wasn't right because they felt like that was trying to take their voice away. And so ultimately, I found that was a key way to reach across the aisle and talk with people of all political stripes. What I found when I was door knocking prior to COVID hitting was a lot of consistency, a lot like Patrick. A lot of people have the same frustrations, regardless of political party. We're exploding with growth, and our infrastructure is sorely lacking. It seems like a lot of our building is reactive to the growth as opposed to being proactive and projecting for that, so we're better prepared when it actually happens. they're tired of the legislature constantly talking about fixing things that matter to us, but spending the majority of their time bickering about party issues and divisive social issues that really aren't at the top of the hot button for most people. We want our property taxes lowered. We want to see infrastructure fixed. We want to see education properly funded. We want to see healthcare being accessible to everybody and affordable. So that's what I'm running for. I want to actually give the people of 21 better representation, and hopefully I can earn your vote.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Sean, back to you for questions.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you all again for participating in our candidate forums. The Meridian Chamber of Commerce shared with you some of the topics that were very important to the business community. And we're going to begin with one that transportation. Transportation is definitely a very, very hot topic. It's crucial to Idaho's economy, and any further delays in our transportation challenges will only strangle Idaho's economic vitality, but will result in passing the problem to the future generations. A recent survey conducted by the city of Meridian of the citizens has roads, traffic, and transportation as one of its highest concerns. Accordingly, the Meridian Chamber of Commerce supports the following projects for transportation infrastructure, and that's the construction of Linder Overpass at I-84 to provide additional arterial north-south access, continued improvements on Highway 2026 west of Locust Grove to reduce congestion, improve safety, and create economic opportunity for development, and of course the completion of State Highway 16 extension to Highway 84, the Central Valley Expressway. How do you propose that the funding for these projects be approached, and what else do you see as challenges for transportation in the Meridian and Treasure Valley area? And we're going to begin with Representative Holtzclaw, District 20. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Well, as you know, in 2017, we passed some legislation to address this, and I think we did a pretty good job. It was kind of a four-tier approach. We borrowed about $300 million in Garvey bonds. We did that. We extended a surplus eliminator, and what that did was it created a 60-40 split with the locals in the highway district. What we need to do is we need to fund education. We need to fund transportation in a way that isn't reactive. But the thing is, we're always reactive to growth. We're growing. We can't go build all these highways because where's that money going to come from? Taxpayers, right? So we have to do it in an approach that makes sense. No, I don't like standing in traffic no more than anyone. But why is there more traffic now? Because there's more people, right? So in 2012, they did increase the funding for gasoline. And that in itself isn't going to, it's just not going to be enough. We need to think and look at the general fund for additional funds for transportation. And I know and I appreciate the fact that you guys said that you don't want to use general funds for that, but we need to look at all options. We need to have conversations, for one fund or another not to be on the table. For me, I feel like that doesn't really solve the problem. We need to discuss the issues. We just need to discuss them and get to the bottom and find a good solution.
Representative Holtzclaw, thank you. Just to be clear, Representative Holtzclaw is running for District 20, Position B. His opponent, Samantha Hagar, did not respond to our request to participate in this. So we're going to move over to this Legislative District 20, State Representative Position A. Pat Solia. Thank you.
Yes. And like Representative Holtzclaw, we know traffic's a problem here in Meridian. In fact, when I talk to people, it's one of the top two issues right up there with education funding. We are growing at such a rate, and we are a city that's only 100,000 people, not 10 million. I live and work 6.2 miles away from each other. And while our office is closed now due to COVID, before COVID, it was taking me 35 to 45 minutes to get into work each day. That's just unacceptable. And when you talk to the people at District 20, they agree. The traffic's unacceptable. There is no reason in a city with 100,000 we should have a half-hour ride to go a few miles. My opponent's the chair of the Transportation Committee. And he sure likes showing off his private plane he owns. But most of us can't fly into work each day. Most of us, myself included, we have to use the roads. And those roads are completely overloaded and need relief now. We need to look into public transit options. I would like to start with a robust bus system, looking towards a light rail in the future, because we cannot just build up our infrastructure. We also have to start reducing the number of cars on the road and allowing traffic to move to flow smoothly. If we do that, we'll see actual results. I believe there's great funding mechanisms. Currently, the state gives away $2.4 billion, almost 2.5 in sales tax exemptions. I would like to set up some oversight. I know this is being talked about for 2021, and look to see if we can eliminate some of those out-of-date ones that are no longer providing a benefit and turn that money into things like education funding, transportation, and healthcare. And that's why I'm committed to real lasting traffic relief here in Meridian.
Thank you, Mr. Solier. And next, Mr. Williamson. You're still muted. We're all guilty of it.
Dang it, I was going to be the one guy that didn't do it. Too late for that. Yeah, so I would echo what Representative Holtzclass said, is that we need to sit down and have a conversation about it and explore every option that we have as far as funding goes. This is not a problem that is unique to Meridian or Boise or Idaho in general. This is an issue for numerous cities across the country. So doing some research in that and seeing what some of the mechanisms they've used, a lot of cities have had to get creative in regards to getting extra funding for some of their infrastructure projects. So I'd like to do a little more exploration into that and seeing what worked for some areas, what didn't. Things like looking into more public and private sector partnerships for certain projects. Possibilities of a state infrastructure bank that allows lending at low to no interest rates for infrastructure projects. I agree with Patrick. Looking at some of the sales tax exemptions that are out of date that we're no longer going to get benefit from to free up some funding for some of our infrastructure needs. And then possibly looking at giving local municipalities the ability to enact local option taxes if that's something they see as a necessary means to raise the needed funds.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Williamson. And just to note, Mr. Williamson is the only candidate that agreed to participate in our forum today from District 21. So thank you so much for joining us. Economic development is our next topic. The Meridian Chamber favors legislation that creates jobs, reduces regulation on businesses, encourages businesses to grow and prosper, and makes it easy for business to provide goods and services for our citizens and trade. How do you propose Meridian and the Greater Treasure Valley handle the national attention as a best place to work and live? And how do we keep up with that rapid increase in population that we're all facing as more and more strain gets put on our local municipalities and government agencies to meet those service demands of the increased population? And we'll begin with Mr. Williamson for this one.
And hit the mute button. Okay. Currently, I believe that the citizens and our current businesses, we can't keep shouldering the cost. So I think it's necessary to look at impact fees so that the growth starts paying for itself a little bit better than it's currently set up to. And that includes maybe even allowing some of the impact fees to be allocated for helping to fund education as well. I think that, again, a local option tax could be a necessary means to help with that and take some of the burden off the property tax owners. If our resort cities like McCall and Ketchum, they have that, they're pretty successful with that, and that seems to help. So I think that's a good mechanism for helping local businesses as well. I'm a small business owner with my wife, and I'm all for seeing if there's regulations that can be loosened to help stir and stimulate new business and current business growth. But I also don't want to do that at the risk of creating an unsafe work environment for employees or customers or what have you. So I think there's a balance that can be attained that we can lower some of the things at least temporarily or potentially long term. COVID has impacted this so much that maybe typical ideas that we would look at. Obviously, we have to twink for a bit because right now the economy is struggling and a lot of businesses are closing. We had to close our offices down for my wife's business, and I had to set up the ability for what staff we still have remaining to work remotely. So there's going to be a need, in the short term to help get the economy going again and get businesses going again. But those I don't think are long-term solutions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Solier.
Yeah, this is definitely a very hard point for a lot of Idaho businesses. COVID has impacted everyone, and no more so than businesses that need to keep their doors open to keep customers coming in. What I see as the biggest problem is an educated workforce. We see the local tech companies continually having to import people from out of state because they cannot find the talent they need here. That adds to the cost of hiring, and it also moves people in instead of giving a job to an existing person in Idaho. I want to work on education in particular, and I think that will get our wages up and will give the employers all across Idaho a much better educated local workforce to go with versus having to bring them from everywhere. And we've even seen this. Our local tech companies have moved their executive offices out of Idaho. They don't sit here anymore because they don't view it as a necessary thing anymore. We need to show why Idaho is the greatest state in the nation and that everybody should be hiring local. There's no need to go elsewhere. We're 51st in the nation in funding per student. I would like to see that increase significantly and in a smart way.
Mr. Solier, what's your position on the local tax option authority?
Yeah, so I support the local tax option. I do have some concerns, as do many people. And I don't have all the answers for them. You obviously don't want to have some tiny city in the mountains where all the residents have to go there, suddenly pass a 20% sales tax or something. But it's very interesting. The elected officials of Idaho will scream their heads off about local control when the federal government tries to come in. But when a city tries to manage itself, they're the first ones to step in there and micromanage. I don't think our elected officials know each city as well as the mayors and the city council members, and I trust them to make the right decisions for their city.
Thank you. Representative Holtzclaw, how do you propose the area handle the national attention that we're getting and keep up with the rapid increase in population? Mute button.
So I've been a real estate broker here for 20 years. And the amount of people that are coming in is just amazing. And they're coming in here because Idaho's great. Let's face it. I mean, the word's out. Great place to run a business, to have a family, to raise kids. I would love to keep Idaho the way it is now going forward. And I don't know with the population growth how best to do that. I think we can do it, but I think it is going to take some more resources probably from the cities and the counties for fire and public safety. I do want to talk about local option tax, though, because everybody else did. So if you read Title 50, 1046, it clearly states what you can do with the local option tax. It takes 60% of the voters to do that. I think there's 14 cities that are doing it right now. I think, though, if we let's pretend we had a local option tax here in Meridian. Well, what's to stop someone going a mile down the road and buying a car, or a mile down the road and buying whatever they need to buy at a cheaper price? So again, I think that we need to have a conversation about that. We need to work with the other cities and the other counties in relation to that, because it wouldn't make, I mean, if we do something like that, what sense would it make for our businesses to lose revenue just in hopes that maybe we can get an extra percent or something like that? It makes no sense to me economically. It just makes no sense. Anyway, I'm not saying I'm against it. It's up to the voters, whatever the voters want, right? I mean, and that's how we should approach that.
So you mentioned the other cities in the state that have that right. It is a legislative measure that has to take place in order to give the cities that local option right to do. And you're correct. It takes a supermajority to pass the citizens. What do you think's been the reluctance from the legislature currently to just give that opportunity to the cities to pass? If 66% or more of the citizens want to enact that tax, why should they not be given the opportunity to do it?
Well, they have 14 times. There's 14 cities that have local option tax.
Okay, is it currently available for any city to institute that or ask for that to be on a ballot?
I believe it is. I believe it is. I mean, if you read Title 50, Chapter 1046, I believe it is.
Okay, I will have to go back and read that myself. So thank you. Taxes. While we're on the subject, the Meridian Chamber supports a tax structure which is fair, stable, provides adequately for the services the government must provide, and encourages investments by businesses and individuals to grow our economy. Do you support the reduction of state corporate tax rates to increase competitiveness with other states? Why or why not? Representative Holtzclaw.
You know, I do, and because I believe in trickle down economy, or trickle down economics. I believe that if the corporate taxes rates were lower, that would give the businesses the opportunity to spend more money to enhance their business and also give it to the employees.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Solier, same question.
Yeah.
Do you support reduction of state corporate income tax rates?
I'm always open to talking about tax rate reductions. Nobody likes paying taxes. I have not heard that complaint from an abundance of businesses. Idaho is one of the lowest corporate tax rates. We have a lot of exemptions and things like that. So it's a discussion I'm definitely open to have. On the surface, I don't see a necessary need for it. I think there's better areas we can look at. But if there's a demand for it, I'm always open.
Okay. Mr. Williamson.
Yeah, I'm a lot like Patrick. I'm always willing to have a conversation about it. Currently, I don't see a need necessarily to lower it. But like Patrick said, if there's a lot of talk in the business community about wanting that, then definitely willing to sit down and have a conversation and look at that. But right now, Idaho still seems to be attracting businesses. So I think currently where we're at is okay.
Thank you. Our next topic is education. All of you have touched on this a little bit, but the Meridian Chamber supports efforts to expand the capabilities of our K-12 schools to graduate all students with necessary skills to successfully complete college and or career technical education training, including emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and math. State-supported colleges and universities need to provide the relevant curriculum and trained workforces required if Idaho businesses are to effectively compete in the global marketplace. With the rapid growth being seen in Meridian, how do you propose Idaho school funds their future building needs? And how do we change and address the low funding per student that we have in Idaho, especially in the West Ada School District? And we'll begin with Mr. Williamson. Not at this time. I think
one option that for funding mechanism for education obviously would be impact fees and letting local school districts being able to access the impact fees so that they're we get these new developments growing and then another school is built in and then we know there's more bonds and levies that are put out there that keep increasing our property taxes, but that people in Ada County and Meridian, we want to see our schools funded, so we typically step up and pay that, but we don't want to keep paying those high property taxes either. So I think allowing the school districts to being able to have access to impact fees could help. I agree with the chamber. We definitely need to put more attention into STEM students so that we're building and educating an eventual workforce that can stay here so that our students, when they graduate, aren't leaving the state, to find better jobs and better paying jobs, and that we're retaining that talent here in state. I think overall it needs to come from the legislature. It's in the Constitution and the Idaho Constitution that our legislature needs to be adequately funding our education system, and we haven't. We're still, I believe, $100 million below what our funding was for education back in 2008, I believe it was, prior to the recession. So we're still not even at that level yet. And all we've done in those last 12, 13 years is blow up in population. So the need is even greater and the strain is even greater. So I think it starts with our legislature committing funds to our education system and then opening up more options for STEM opportunities for the students. I'd like to see programs for trade, because not every student is going to want to go into something to do with math or technology, but trade is very much, we still need plumbers and electricians, and so I'd like to see some development in there for those students as well.
Thank you. Mr. Solier.
Yes. Funding education is what's written in the Idaho Constitution. And when I talk to the people here in the district, this is the number one issue. They are furious with education funding. And I don't know about everybody watching here, but I am sick and tired of going to election after election and filling out endless bond levies. We need to invest in education, but we need the entire state investing in our state's education, not just Meridian and Boise and a few of these higher populous areas. We need to spread the costs out across the state. I do want to, again, go back to the $2.4 billion that Idaho gives away in sales tax exemptions each year, carve out some of that for education. We are 51st in the nation, and that can't go on. It can't. I mean, it is outstanding. I would say 80% of the messages and people I talk to are education funding, and the legislature has completely failed to do its job with that.
Thank you, Mr. Solier. Representative Holtzclaw.
Hi. Yes. Hey, thank you very much. Article 9, Section 1 clearly states a free education. It just does. And it goes on to say it should be uniform. And I totally agree with that. But if you look at fiscal year 2021, the budget, you can clearly read that we spend 48.9% of our total budget on education. So I want to fund education, and we have in the last, ever since I've been up there, we've increased the education budget year over year over year. And we want well-educated young men and women who feel like that we need to provide our young people a different avenue, regardless of technical. So the go on rate should also include people that go in the military, which it doesn't, because the military members, young men and women that serve their country right after high school, they are going on and they're getting a good education, but those go on rates don't reflect that. So relating to the bonds and the levies, golly, it puts the taxpayer, the taxpayer is always paying for that in Meridian. And we got to put a stop to that. My word, the property tax that I pay and my neighbors pay, that's all I hear about. It's nuts. It's just too much money. need to put a stop to that. We need to lower that property tax rate.
Quick follow-up, Representative Holzclaw. You mentioned that you felt like we were increasing funding for education, and you've done that every year you've been in the legislature. And you mentioned that you don't want to see bonds and levies. We need to get rid of those to lower property taxes. So what is the funding mechanism that you see available to make sure that our students are able to live without bonds? Are you in favor of impact fees? How will you fund schools moving forward?
You know, it's interesting. If you look and see what's going on in the last 6 months with the COVID, there's some interesting ideas going around relating to some incentives for education, tax credit. So I think that there's a lot of things we can do. I think impact fees is one of them. It's definitely one tool that we can do. Bond levies are obviously another tool that we do quite a bit. And I want you to know, I didn't say we shouldn't do bonds and levies, but what I said was, or what I want you to understand is that I hear that a lot from my constituents, that they're fed up with having all the bonds and levies. Because in the Constitution, it clearly says, Article 1, Section 9 clearly says it should be a free education. It should be spread across the state. So where we thread that needle, I don't know. That's a huge conversation, and we definitely need to have it, this ongoing conversation, which will continue long after I'm out of the legislature, I'm sure, of how we're going to fund education.
Thank you.
Can I add in one thing there? I just want to say, I agree with Representative Holzclaw. We can do a lot of things, and that's how all other 50 states and the District of Columbia have done a better job than us. So if we want to look somewhere, look anywhere else.
I have one more follow-up too onto that. Talking to some of the leaders in the education community, I think one of the things I would like to look at is apparently the legislature in years past have put restrictions on different line items in the education budget. So like, let's say they allot X amount of dollars for facilities, but they find out like this year at the beginning of the school year, because of COVID, everybody's learning remotely. They have significantly less dollars in their line item for technology, which they obviously needed a lot more money for. The education board, the school districts, they don't have the ability to shift funds from one line item in their budget where they're going to have significant overage of funds and move that to a different line item. They have to spend it on that line item specifically. So where this year, maybe they, in the first 3 months of this year, they would have a significant amount of overage in their facilities because students have been distance learning. They can't take that overage and shift that over to a different line item. And I'd like to look at some of those items and give them more flexibility to shift their funds where it's needed on a case-by-case basis.
So Sean, real quick, I'd like to just go through the group and clarify the point related to impact fees for schools. West Ada in particular has an incredible need to fund construction for a number of schools. In fact, right outside my window here, I can almost see the new high school going up on Ustick Road. How specifically do we pay for those? Do we use impact fees, or do we use general tax dollars, or do we use the current model that we're using, which is bonds and sometimes levies?
All right. Let's go with Mr. Williamson.
Sorry, I was looking at my notes and realizing I was on mute. Can you ask that question again?
Sure. Just specifically, how, with what the needs West Ada has to build schools, how would you prefer they're funded to build the new construction that's needed?
I would look at impact fees first.
Okay.
I mean, I'm willing to look at any option we have. Just like I mentioned with infrastructure, it's not a unique problem to Idaho. So we need to look at any and all options. But I think impact fees and helping that growth pay for itself, it would be one of the first places to look.
Thank you.
Mr. Solier?
Yes, I agree with impact fees as well. And again, I'll go back to $28 billion that Idaho has given away in sales tax exemptions. We can easily carve out a section of that specifically earmarked for education.
Thank you.
Representative Holzclaw?
Yeah, I think we'll look at any and all options, but I do want to say from fiscal year 2019 to fiscal year 2020, we increased education budget 5.9%.
Okay, now let's get into the question. Do you or do you not support impact fees to build new schools in the West Ada School District?
I would have to see, probably, but I would probably have to see how that's going to work. You know, as you know, school districts are outside of city lines, outside of county lines. So we would have to make sure that we do it appropriately.
Okay, let me make it as easy as possible. The way it works for other infrastructure needs like sewer and water and all that hookup is new construction is carved out a percentage of that goes to fund that. Right now in the state of Idaho, it is against our laws to use those funds for any school construction. So would you support Idaho allowing school districts to use impact fees to build new schools?
Okay, so everyone asks me all the time, will you support this bill? Will you support that bill? I need to see what it looks like on paper before I say yes.
Okay, all right. So you won't answer the question. That's fine.
Is that fair?
It's not an answer, but it's a fair response. I would prefer.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I need to know what you're talking about. I just can't have a.
So okay, I'll make it even easier. A hookup fee for a sewer line in a new subdivision, let's say $500 for each home when it's first sold goes to that hookup fee. Would you support a model like that where every new home, a certain dollar amount that is determined by basically the need in the community to fund the school, that school district can charge that fund for that new construction?
I probably would, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Local government is our next topic. Meridian Chamber supports the measures that enhance the amenities of our community to make Meridian a great place to live, work, and raise families. What is your position on the ability of communities and local cities to utilize urban renewal and/or auditorium districts to fund local projects? Let's go with Mr. Williamson first.
Yeah, I would be open and in favor of that. I believe, you know, obviously I would need to see, you know, what the final projection, you know, bill or would be. But overall, I think I'd be in support of that. You know, I think it's the local level should be allowed to govern themselves. You know, like Patrick said earlier, a lot of the times our state legislature tends to play big brother and limit the local municipalities on what they are allowed to do and not do when it comes to governing their communities. And you know, Ada County, we have different needs than those in more rural counties, and it's the local you know, mayors and representatives there that understand that, and they're the ones that talk to those communities. So I would be in favor of letting them govern themselves and giving them more latitude there.
Okay. Mr. Solier.
Yes, I'm with Mr. Williamson. I definitely would be open to that. I think it's a great idea. It's an area I still have a little more research to do, so I can't give you a comprehensive view. But again, it just goes back to this local control. Our elected officials will scream about local control until a city tries to control itself. And when it comes to Meridian, I trust Mayor Simonson more than I trust Representative Heather Scott to make our decisions. I trust Councilwoman Liz Strader more than I trust Representative Tammy Nichols to make decisions for us. The legislature has to stop micromanaging every aspect of Idaho and instead stick in their lane, very much like they asked the federal government to do.
Okay. Representative Holtzclaw.
I don't like it. No. I think a lot of times those districts, they don't pay their fair share of property taxes and they put the burden on the others that pay more.
Okay. What about the auditorium district? That's a tax that's not necessarily on the local people to support things. Those are taken from the people that are visiting from hotels and things like that. Are you in support of the auditorium districts to fund local projects?
I am, absolutely. Yeah, I think tourism is huge in Idaho, and it has been for a few decades. And we love people coming and seeing our beautiful state. And we appreciate their money, and we appreciate them spending it here.
Okay, thank you. Final question I've got, and then we'll get to closing statements. And this one is directly related to the the businesses that have been impacted by COVID over the last 8 months. If elected to legislature, what would you like to see addressed in the upcoming session in January that is supportive of the local businesses and their recovery from the impact that they've experienced with COVID? We'll begin with Representative Holtzclaw.
Yeah, this has been a tough year for a lot of businesses, not only, in our district, but across the nation. They're shutting their doors, and that's unfortunate. If we could use some of that CARES Act money to help them and benefit them, I would be all for that. I think that's important, especially for the small business owner. Golly, it's just been a tough year for a lot of owners I know, and we all want to get back to work, and we all want to get things back normal as quick as possible, but we got to do it in a safe way. So again, to use some CARES Act money and help the small business owners out.
Thank you. Mr. Solier.
Well, I agree a lot with what Representative Holtzclaw said. This has been a year that will go down in the record books, and for all the wrong reasons. As a business owner, I don't know if there's ever been a harder time. We've had recessions, but we've never had a pandemic in the modern era. So we need to make sure we make our business owners whole. I particularly like the idea of looking at the CARES money, but we also need to actually ask the question, what do we need to do to make the business owners whole? As far as I know, there's no answer to that right now. And it's complex, and it probably needs a task force or someone studying it to figure it out. But we need to do the right thing to make sure local small businesses can continue to thrive in Idaho.
Thank you. Mr. Williamson, if elected, how would you see the legislature supporting small businesses?
Echoing what the previous candidate said, obviously looking into any and all federal funds that are available to kind of help, support small businesses. Like I said, my wife's small business, we're one of those victims. We had to shut down our offices, which was a hard pill for my wife to swallow. We're fortunately able to set up and be able to work remotely, and so our staff can. But the hours are reduced, so we're just kind of plodding along and taking it one step at a time. And my heart yearns for all those businesses out there that aren't able to do that, and their staff, So I think looking at the CARES Act and any, like I said, any other federal funds we can get to kind of help with that, and then ultimately getting a message coming from the legislature and having our leaders lead more uniformly about doing the things that will help us get to where we want to be, which is open as much as we can be and still being safe, which is, promoting mask wearing and not making it this divisive issue. It's not a political issue. The social distancing, the washing our hands, those are all great. Any one of those things in and of themselves is not enough to prevent someone from contracting the virus or giving it to somebody else. But it's all of those things combined that help to greatly improve our chances of not contracting the virus and not spreading it to other people and keeping it somewhat under control. And if we do those things as a community and look out for protecting our community members, then that can actually help us get back to some semblance of normalcy as best we can. And I'd like to see the legislature take a leadership role in that respect.
Thank you. Now we'll give you an opportunity to kind of make a statement to the voters of District 20 and 21 of why they should elect you to the legislature this year. And we'll begin with Representative James Holtzclaw.
Thank you. It's been an honor to represent District 20. Golly, what a humbling experience. It's one of the best things I've ever done. And I would really appreciate your vote. It means the world to me. But can I say this? Can I reach out to everyone in Idaho and just say that let's don't be so divisive. Can't we have a conversation? I don't care if you're a Democrat, independent, somewhere in between. Whatever happened to us sitting down and talking and coming to a conclusion, doing it the Idaho way, not so divisive. Just because you feel one way and I feel the other, that doesn't mean we're enemies. It just means that we think of different things different ways. Let's get together, because I know we can. Idaho. I mean, let's do it. I implore you, no matter who you vote for or what your political thoughts are, let's love one another and let's treat each other as human beings and come together. And if I would be so honored to get your vote, if you want to vote for me, I'd really appreciate it. I'd be honored. And please let me know what I can do to help you. My email, my cell phone's on the internet. I get phone calls all the time. I'm very open and willing to discuss any issue at any time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Holtzclaw, for those comments. Mr. Solier.
Yes, first off, I do want to acknowledge Representative Holtzclaw being here. Thank you for attending. I think you're one of the only 4 or 5 sitting legislators that actually accepted. So I really appreciate that. I think it's important we have these discussions for the community. And I think people are ready for bipartisan solutions. And that's why I'm the only candidate in District 20 endorsed by not only Democrats, not only independents, but also Republicans as well. I want to bring bipartisan solutions back to Idaho and stop this just all-out warfare and hatred. It's time we work together for solutions for Idaho, not against each other. And we need leaders here to do that. Right now, my opponent's not here. He's not here to talk about his issues and how he plans to do these things, but I will always be here for you. Again, my name's Pat Soulier. Like Mr. Holtzclaw, my email and phone number are well accessible online. If you want to contact me, feel free. I appreciate everyone's time today, especially our host, and I hope I earned your vote today.
Thank you, Mr. Solier. Mr. Williamson.
Yeah, I'd echo everything the other candidates mentioned as well. Representative Holtzclaw said it perfectly. What happened to us being able to have a conversation? And people that I've door knocked with, same thing. Republicans, independents, libertarians, all of them. They want to see the divisiveness stop and the constant, finger pointing and blaming. Oh, well, the Democrats do this, the Republicans do that, and then at the end of the day, we're all still struggling with our property taxes getting out of hand and our education not being funded the way we would want and our infrastructure, suffering and on and on. The things that matter to Idahoans every day, we want to see those things getting taken care of. Like I said, I couldn't agree more with that. So I'd like to see more of that. I'd appreciate your vote. It is truly humbling. My first time doing this, seeing people that donate to my campaign, it's an incredibly humbling experience. But it makes me want to do that even more to be a representative for the people and get the people, what they're looking for. Thank you to Meridian Press, Idaho Press, and Meridian Chamber for hosting this and for all the candidates that attended today.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you, Sean. I had to get that mute button. So I just wanted to thank the candidates for being here today. This was a great forum. You guys all did a wonderful job. It is disappointing. I agree that we didn't have more participation from some of our elected officials. And I hope that next time they take this a little more seriously so they can inform our voters to make the right decision for Idaho. So please stay tuned to the Idaho Press and the Meridian Press for more election coverage. We appreciate the Meridian Chamber for partnership. And
yes.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you all. Appreciate you participating. Be sure and vote this November. Many of you may have your ballots already in hand. So take that responsibility seriously and vote. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
I don't think I'll do that. Very well.